God of War is one of the most impactful video game franchises in human history, and God of War Ragnarok does not fail to impress. Today I have with me Danielle Bisutti. She was super kind and gracious enough to sit down with me for a few moments to talk about the game, talk about her experience as Freya, and tell us a little bit about her process and experience with the God of War franchise. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Yeah, and it's no wonder that people really adhere themselves to the character and the story, because you're living with us for a long time.
You are. And that's actually, I think that is kind of a good place to kind of jump in, is like,
Okay.
when I'm just like walking around as whichever character, there's this like constant dialogue happening between, and it's so natural and it's so, I can't even explain it. It just feels like I'm Kratos or I'm Atreus or whoever. And how do you guys like record that? How do you guys build that environment to make it seem so real? Because that's not a cutscene. That's not motion capture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is interesting. So I was slightly lamenting some of those moments, only because, there I am talking about my childhood or something really, something very emotional that happened with my brother when we were kids, and we're just, I'm the Falcon and we're just hanging out, and I'm like, wait, I don't know what's going on. I'm so used to these moments being grounded in the cinematics. And they said, it's just, there's so much territory to cover in the game that some of these pieces of the narrative need to just be as you're walking through, like trudging through the 9 realms. But don't worry, they said, this information will not be lost on the gamer, because that was my number one concern. I said, how could they really feel the impact of things? I mean, even Kratos talking about Calliope and me talking about Baldur and all these things that felt like, no, we need to be around a campfire. And they're like, you don't, you'll be okay.
No, you're right. I mean, actually, some of those strongest moments, I think, are from those little pieces where I'm just traveling. The cutscenes are obviously amazing. The first one being just the intro, because you see that in the trailer a little bit.
We can talk about the intro.
Okay, cool. All of a sudden, you just fly out of nowhere, and I like kind of forgot about what happened in the last game. I watched a recap, but like I forgot about how impactful that was. I saw the like pain in your eyes that they created digitally through motion capture, and I was just wondering if you could walk us through that scene just a little bit, just to talk about, like you said, that anger to forgiveness and what that was like.
Yeah, that was one of the first scenes that we did in the volume. So the volume is, as you probably know, it's a white room,
yeah.
And there's 360 cameras, and then we're in the full performance capture suit. We got the camera in our face, and they let me know, and I can say this because it's in the trailer. They're like, the opening of this is going to be so epic, like right hot out the gate, like Freya is on their trail. And I said, yeah, that feels right, because the promise I made to him at the end of the 2018 game was very sincere, to say the least. And even though the relationship with Baldur was so complicated, as many mother-child relationships are, he was all she had.
Mm-hmm.
He was her hope for some semblance of family after everything was taken from her. And we know this because we talked about it in the other game, from Odin, from getting her wings taken, her crown. It wasn't even really about the wings and the crown. It was, she created this family, right, to broker a peace between the Vanir and the Aesir, and she took a big risk, and everybody kind of turned their back on her. It's like, she took the risk and everyone was like, yeah, make it happen. And then when it didn't happen, it's like, oh, we don't really want to associate with you anymore. And so Freya's had to contend for 180 years with a lot of feelings of betrayal. And I think the one person that she had all of her hope in reconnecting with, she says, we can start anew, was Baldur. So when Kratos takes that away, even though she was ready to sacrifice herself, like ultimately, like that's kind of Freya. She's like always like the sacrificial lamb. She'll lay herself like down for the slaughter for someone that she loves. It was her choice that was taken away. Kratos took away her choice. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, when I make that promise in the last game, and it's all out there, and I challenge him, you'll never change. I know enough. Does he? And now I'm calling to task Kratos to finally become honest about himself. And then you see that moment where Freya's carrying dead Balder in her arms and walking away. Yeah. She was at the ready. She didn't need time to figure out what her next step was going to be. It was to fulfill her promise. It was all about vengeance. And it was like eye for an eye in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't see anything else but the color red. And when we shot it, I felt like such a duty and responsibility for Freya for playing this role for many reasons, but specifically that I needed Kratos to understand how deep seated that pain was, and that he took something from me, and so now I was going to take something from him. And I almost lost my voice with that last Kratos yell.
Oh, so just a real funny side note I found this really cool video of all your cutscenes. And
is it up? I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's on it has every cutscene from Ragnarok, all of your stuff compiled into one. They love the voice acting. There's a lot of timestamps just talking about their favorite scenes. And somebody wrote, it's like the top comment, props to Danielle for that scream. It expresses all the pain of for the death of her son and the perceived portrayal of Kratos' hatred and anger, and most importantly, a thirst for revenge. And you just encapsulated it, and so did that comment. So I just thought you should hear that.
Oh, yeah, you bring tears to my eyes. Yeah, it was a special day on the stages, and Chris has become, Chris and Sonny are two of my loves, and Chris has become, one of my best friends over these years. And so there's a real trust there. Like I told him, I said, you let me know if I'm going too far, because I have a lot to give right now.
Yeah.
And he can see it in my eyes. Everything from jumping on the box to the sword, and then just that last moment of Kratos. And that's such a sweet thing. Thank you for reading that to me. I mean, honestly, everybody had such a reverence when we'd come together and do these scenes that it wasn't hard to just bare my soul and know that I was doing it in a safe space where I could just really go there.
Yeah. I was going to ask how that, I don't know what the right word is, the working conditions, the environment that they create so you can be vulnerable, because you don't have, you have some props, you have a sword, and I know you said you got on the box, but it's probably not too dissimilar from a Marvel movie where they're in the green screen room doing all their weird movements I don't know if you've seen those videos where they're doing green screen work without the effects around them and they look so silly.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not too dissimilar from that. And I just am curious how you bring out your emotion. Is it you and Chris playing off one another? How do you get yourself to that dark place? Because obviously you're not Freya, you're Danielle. So how do you bring that out? I know you're a professional actress, and I'm not discounting your talents here. But how do you get there?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's just all the years of training, and also just in being an empath in my own life, just being kind of witchy in some ways, meaning I've always trusted my intuition. I've always felt people's pain. I think two of my best girlfriends in high school, the three of us would call ourselves emotions cubed, because we would just always be weepy. In choir, we'd have a choir concert and we'd be weepy, it just, so I'm a sensitive being, and I care deeply about the game. I care deeply about the integrity of Freya. And, I'm a theater trained actress. So once I'm in the world, once you're creating the space, and I think this is a testament to having had a training in the theater, is that you could put me it's black box theater, right? You could put somebody in a black box.
That's a good point.
With two stools, you don't even need a prop, and you are living, the environment, you see it, you smell it, you feel it on your skin. And so, Chris, I always say, he makes fun of me. He used to call me Master Thespian, because he go, you and your thespian ways. But no, he of course, we have mutual respect for one another's process and the craft that we bring. And so it wasn't hard. None of it feels like an effort. And I will say that I have worked a lot. I've been on movie sets, television sets, theater, and now a handful of games, this environment is one of the healthiest, most supportive, loving environments. And I'm not just saying it because sometimes you have to say it. You're like,
Yeah.
it was great. No, everyone was really, really nice. And on the inside, you're like dying
Yeah,
from
you're
like
burning alive. Yeah.
yeah, because you know you're so out of integrity, but like you just don't want to be fired.
Yeah, of course.
This is, I love these people. Oh my God. I just love them. I can't even, I'm so happy for 10 nominations. I'm thinking about all the risks they took from the 2018 to now. And then even just the risks they took in 2018 and the fact that it required everybody to bring their excellence every moment.
Yep.
And so we did it together. We all were like rising up together.
Yeah, you can feel it in the game. I don't really think this is a spoiler, but I think this game, it's hard to say that it's better than the first one because it's not like a traditional sequel. It's continuing that storyline. But the way that the developers and the writers and that they kind of shaped it all, I really love this game over the first one because the first one really focused on Kratos and Atreus and the father-son relationship, and even your role was a lot more subdued compared to this second game. I hope I'm not giving anything away, but every character that comes along for the ride is overflowing with emotion. Their story is deep. It cuts deep. I feel like I can resonate with everybody, and it's all like a fictitious mythology tale, and I'm like crying when I'm watching Kratos, touch his son's shoulder. I literally had tears in my eyes. But how do you feel your role contrast compared to the first game? Because I was watching some of the old footage from the first game, and you felt a lot more concerned and not worried, but concerned and compassionate in like a motherly way. I looked at you as like a motherly figure in that game, and in this game I look at you completely differently. I look at you like as a warrior, as a leader, as somebody that's like trying to make sure Odin isn't messing things up for everybody. But how do you feel? Is that an accurate representation, or do you feel differently?
Absolutely. And I think that one laid the foundation for the other, right?
Yes.
Because there was a bit of resignation to Freya when you meet her in Midgard. She's like, well, there's a spell and here I am. Now I'm going to collect I'm going to collect the red root and what was the white flower?
I forget. That's the last mission I played in that game. I forget what it's called though.
Lamb's crest.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Like, can you give me it's just a little white flower, just a handful.
Yeah.
I like that she starts giving the God of War orders to pick flowers.
Exactly.
But you're right. She cannot be bothered in the first game at first. But what hooks her in is that mother instinct for Atreus, right? And then he gets sick. And then it's like, I'm thinking about all the missed opportunities I had with my son and all the hope that I have to make things right, that I get to play out in this new semblance of a family, right? And I think there's even that line in the new game where it's like saying goodbye to the family that I always wanted, but now having the appreciation for this chosen family that has been, sort of cobbled together throughout all of these insane, transformative experiences that these characters go through. And I think that she has such a gratitude for that, but she has to get there because at first, she wants to kill him. So the first game, it's resignation, and then the mother instinct kicks in, right? And then I think she starts to sort of remember she's a goddess, right?
Yes.
She's this.
Yeah.
She's not the witch of the woods, but she's a witch of the woods. But this is like, it's almost like when you look in the mirror and you're like, I don't recognize you anymore.
Who have I become? Yeah.
Who have I become? Who is this woman? I used to be goddess of all things. So it's really like the fact that like Kratos and Atreus basically stumble into her world. Like, I think there's so much gratitude at the end of it, because they literally pulled me out of this sort of complacent resignation So from that to the mother who was going to sacrifice it all for her son, Balder, to that being taken away. The one thing, the one like semblance of hope in her life to start again, now taken by a God who is not being honest, who I don't really have. I mean, my care for Kratos in the first game is like, I understand you're a parent and I'm a parent, and nothing is easy, she says, when, you know, when it comes to your child, right? So there's a care there for Kratos. But the moment that he interferes, and like, I know why he does it, but it still wasn't okay. So then from there, I just think like she's got nothing left to lose when we start Ragnarok. I mean, it's all out. It's like, it's now or never. Everything's been taken away. And I don't even know what my life is what's the meaning of my life at this moment. So I think because she hits rock bottom at the end of 2018, and you kind of see like her festering in that moment, it's all about vengeance, revenge, and all that. God, what a beautiful journey that she has to finally get to forgiveness. And to me, it's the most brilliant writing, first of all,
It's so
any
good.
narrative. I mean,
It's
and then
so
it's like,
good.
it's in a video game. It's incredible.
It's so good. I think let me see if I'm saying his name right. Heimdall.
Heimdall.
I think Heimdall is the character I like the most, because he's like a you know, a smart ass. But then your character arc is probably the biggest. It's probably the one that I resonate with the most. And but I mean, that's not the only one. I mean, Kratos's character arc, Atreus's character arc, theirs take a little while to unravel. I was kind of like, okay, what are we going with here? I know there's like, they're talking about trust, but you see this whole new side to Kratos that you never saw before. Every character just takes a pivotal turn to places I didn't expect at all. And getting to play as them and getting to play with them, it's I don't know. It's such a different experience than the first game. And I really think this was the proper direction. And I don't think it was directed by the same person as last time, right? Corey didn't direct this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Corey's are the overall game, the creative director
Yeah.
of the God of War franchise. And but specifically who was in the trenches with us. I call him, after his speech the other day, our lighthouse
Okay.
is with Eric Williams, and he was fantastic. And he was very hands-on. But not, it was like, he had this, it did feel like a lighthouse. It was sort of like this beacon that was there that, you know, it's like we could kind of, you know, like we would get cast in the waves and the turbulence of the emotion of the scene and whatever storm was weathering. And sometimes he would just come in and just simplify something so beautifully. And it was like, oh yes, thank you for that.
That's awesome.
And also we got to work, I have to mention Matt Sophos, who is the head writer at Sony, Santa Monica Studios, and knows these characters inside and out, and Rich Gobert, who also is one of the head writers. They're a phenomenal team. And so we did a lot of this during COVID. So there were only a certain amount of people able to be on the stages.
That's
so
crazy.
We had Matt. Oh, it was crazy. We had Matt, we had Eric, but then Rich couldn't be there, sadly, because there were, you know, so he was like the voice of God, because they would have him like on the loudspeaker every now and then. And everybody cared so much, you know, about what we were bringing. So it was such a collaboration. I hope I answered your question.
No, I just want to have a conversation with you about this. I was thinking, when I was kind of I wrote down some stuff, and I was just thinking, like, do I want to just sit here and like throw questions at you? And I was like, I just kind of want to hear what you think and feel about this whole thing, because this game is so big. It's not something that I feel like I could condense in like 10 questions and get a 2-minute response for each one.
I'll speak to that, because you talk about how it's just like exponentially grew, right? And then all of a sudden we have Thor and Thor's family and all the trauma and that, that family there, which is so incredible, right? Like the true Norse pantheon, getting a slice of what went down, in their family lineage. Oh man, the gods, man, we really screw up, don't we? Oh, God, all these dysfunctional relationships, but of course that humanizes these characters, and that's why
Mhm.
you see yourself. We're all a child or a child and a parent, and so we know the complexities that happen in the formative years and in these childhood households. And so I remembered at one point when I knew that they were going to continue, right? Because it was definitely a cliffhanger at the end of 2018.
Oh, yeah.
And Corey had mentioned, yeah, the world's gonna get bigger. And he's like, imagine, I hope I'm not saying something he hasn't already said in an interview, but he said, imagine a Marvel universe
Yeah.
within the God of War pantheon, right? Whether, obviously he went through the Greek pantheon and now he's in the Norse world. And he goes, now just imagine that opening up. I mean, think about what happened to Sindri. Look at Sindri's arc,
That's such a good point. Yep.
Mimir, we got great backstory on Mimir and like some of his love experiences. And then we get to understand how he was involved with the brokering of the marriage between me and Odin. And just like all these people are fated and connected. But the most important thing that I love about this game, the most important message, I think, of course, is forgiveness. Of course, when Kratos says we must be better, we have choosing a different path, we must be
Mhm.
better. It was the only way that Kratos and Freya could get there on the other side of feeling victimized and angry and hurt and vengeful and all that, was to take responsibility for their choices.
Yeah. What you
That's the
guys
most
So,
it's
no, go
powerful.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's the most powerful lesson, I think.
Yeah, it is. And you guys talk, oh, man, I have so many notes, and I try to take notes during every level, and when, I don't know how to say the realm, the one where your brother is in,
In Vanaheim.
Vanaheim, okay.
With Freyr, yeah. I mean, and think about that backstory with Freyr, and he left me and
Well, that's where you and Kratos, not to be, to create a pun here, but you guys bury the hatchet. It's like
Yeah.
that whole scene, that whole scene. I'm just climbing around listening to you guys talk, and he's bringing up his past about his this whole previous life that I didn't even really know existed, and how to handle that. And I like felt your demeanor change as a character. There was like one pivotal moment when he was talking about the loss of I might have to bleep this part out, but
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, I
I
I
didn't
didn't
know.
understand. I didn't
Yeah.
know. And that's when I knew, okay, she's bleep this out again. And then just I kind of want to touch on this a little bit about the filming process again. This is just for my personal curiosity. For that
Sure.
whole boss fight that comes up after that, how do you film something like that? Like the voice acting part, how do you, because the character, or sorry, the player is going to do so much. Like you don't know what moves I'm going to hit. You don't know how many times I'm going to fail. And I know there's a lot of programming and stuff that goes into it, but how many lines do you have to say? How many takes do you have to do? How do you act the whole thing? That was one of the most beautiful. That wasn't a fight. That was a ballet. That was a dance. And that's how I look at every battle in this game. I'm like, this is a cinematic, like orchestral ballet. That's how I feel. And I just want to know
Yeah.
what the process was like, if you can share anything.
That's a beautiful way of looking at it. It is sort of a dance, isn't it? Even when we're fighting, like you look at boxers and they're sort of dancing with each other in a way.
Exactly.
And these characters are intertwining and they are doing a dance. It's like so a lot of so there's all of the cut scenes, the cinematics are all on the stages.
Okay.
And then you have a lot of the walking and talking and you get to hear backstory. And for the fight scenes, we will sometimes start them or there'll be some of the motions that you might do on the stages, but because they have scanned our entire body and our movements, they're able to create
Okay.
like shape shifting into a falcon and then back into Freya and like jump, landing square on a sled. But then that was me. I like would approach the box and hop on it so you could kind of see my body settle in,
exactly.
and then I'm able to come around Chris and, with the, my wooden sword, and I'm, and I'm right in there. So yeah, it's all of our emotion. It's all of our voice. It's all of our body. But of course, when Thor hits them with the hammer and they're flying, which by the way was a glorious moment.
No, it was so good.
I love the way Ryan Hurst played him so cavalier. Devil may care. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
Loved his performance. Yeah. So then of course they go into their own animation. And I mean, the fight scenes are so incredible. The gameplay was what I was looking for, are absolutely insane how talented they are to put together what they do. And these boss fights are so epic. And I know that that's a really important piece of this, right? Because, there's a little bit of that criticism of like, hey, is this a movie or a video game? Well, guess what? It's both.
Yeah,
and
it feels like that.
Yeah. And I think it's so much more enjoyable. Like, think about if you're just kind of like fighting, you're shooting somebody up, but it's like when you have an emotional reaction to this person and you want to hurt them because they hurt you. Like, isn't that a little bit more enjoyable when you're wanting to chop their head off?
It is. The narrative element is super important. And I've tried the Spider-Man game. I've obviously played the first God of War. I've played a lot of the Sony exclusives. They do the best job with this whole movie video game, but this is by far the best one. And I'm not saying that because you're here. I was literally talking to somebody earlier today. I'm like, I have never played. The last game that made me feel like this was The Last of Us Part 1. I don't know if you're familiar with that franchise, but
I am.
That first game, however long ago it was, I was living in LA at the time. I played through it and I was like, I didn't know games could do this.
Oh, the dance. Yeah. The choreography. So I felt like I wanted to say one other thing about that. So you were talking to me about the choreography and how will the character know how to defend themselves per whatever move Kratos does. Right. And so obviously that's a huge testament to the animators that do the gameplay. But our responsibility as the actor is literally, it felt like an infinite script of, to your left, Kratos, raiders on your right, behind you, Kratos, dragon up, dragon behind your back. And I was like, I thought I was in hell. I really did.
That sounds like hell.
Oh my God. And it kept going. The wisps, try saying wisps when you're angry. It is not easy. Wisps.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hysterical because, obviously Freya, she became like the general, like the second in command. And then she was, laying out the orders, and there she is at the table with all the boys. Right. And she's right up there in Sindri's house. And here's how we're going in. And so it was incredible to see that they allowed Freya's arc to demonstrate the general, the leader of the Vanguard, very much her masculine side, which is a lovely thing. And you absolutely got to see all of her feminine side as well, which is equally as beautiful. And so, but as far as my instrument, like I'm a singer and I'm a little bit more, I don't know if I'd love to do Call of Duty. I'm not saying I would never want to. In fact, I was actually up for a role once in Call of Duty and it did not go my way, which would have been pretty cool. But yeah, those barking orders that can really be wearing and taxing on these little things we call vocal cords. So that was the hardest part of this game. The crying, the being in the moment, all that is a slice of heaven compared to having to do those scripts.
Yeah, I bet you those scripts are thousands of pages long.
Yeah.
It has to be. It has to be. Because I know a lot about Call of Duty, and I know some of the like zombie maps are the scripts are a few hundred pages. And that's just for one level or one thing. Yeah. So that's insane. I was actually wanting to know how did you get involved with this franchise? Like, because Danny was telling me that I know you said on the phone that you grew up kind of playing video games and stuff, but he was saying like it was just not in your wheelhouse, not your wheelhouse. What's the word? Like it wasn't your, you weren't really expecting it to be as big as it was. And it was just I don't know. This is a monumental piece of history, in my opinion.
It is. It is. I saw the other day they were calling it the game of a generation.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like a movement, doesn't it? Because thank God this sequel was able to expand and open up and go deeper in all facets, literally elevating itself, because it would have been a crying shame if the legacy of God of War died if it died
Yeah.
on
That
that,
would have been a bummer.
in the sequel, that would have been a real shame, crying shame for everything, all the groundwork that we laid in the last game. So the only thing I can tell you is God led me, not God of War, but the big God, because I had no idea. My managers at the time said, how would you like to be? Have you ever thought about being in a video game, like an interactive game? And I was like, but what do you mean? Like voiceover? And they said, well, no more than that, because it's performance capture. So you'll wear the mocap suit. And the first image that came to mind was Avatar. And then shortly thereafter was like Gollum, right? Because we've all seen those like creepy photos of the actor,
Yep.
he's so amazing. And I was like, oh, I said, that could be fun and weird. Let's do it. So I got the audition sides, and it basically just felt like a Shakespearean great soliloquy
It
of some
does. Yeah.
Lady Macbeth energy, some queen or some fallen, her people taken away and the sacrifice. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm back in theater school. Let's just pull this out of my hat, my bag of tricks. And the words were beautiful. And it was like prose, it was like poetry.
Yeah.
So I just came in and did what I would do in any audition. And it brought that, I think I brought some of that regal presence that I tend to play a lot of these kind of witchy or magical empress goddess type characters that I've been playing for a while. And Corey said within the first 30 seconds, he knew. He said, God damn, there she is.
It's so funny you say that. I hear that a lot from directors or producers when they're casting. Like, think of like Breaking Bad. They saw oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but the character that the actor that plays Walter White, and
Walter White. Oh, Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston, there you go. And they just knew he was the right fit, and like that's just so magical. And I'm not saying this to in a jealous way, but I've never been part of anything like that before, and that's just, I hope to one day be part of it, what not necessarily in entertainment, but just in some experience in my life where I am connecting with people in such a way, and a lot of people, not just a couple, and you're building something beautiful. And I would even go further to say that the God of War isn't just the game of a generation. When we look back in 50 years, 100 years, this will be in like the top 5 games that like defined the whole gaming like entertainment industry. You could have Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto. I know a lot of people love that game. And then you'll have the cinematic elements of video games, and God of War will be there. And what does that feel like to be a part of something that magical?
Just absolutely blessed, and just an overwhelming sense of gratitude, and also just the sense of like magic, like you said, because you can't plan for that.
No.
You prepare your craft, you do your work, and one day you walk in, and every actor's dream is for the director to know in the first 30 seconds that you're the one, because it's my job to walk into every audition thinking I'm the one, and I do every single time. I'm like, no, this is mine. You have to, because how do you embody a character only like halfway? So that really got me in the feels when Corey shared that story with me, that he knew right away. And it just feels like, I mean, it's joy, it's gratitude, it's a sense of pride isn't the word. It's like I guess I feel proud of like there is a self-acknowledgement of, you know what, Danielle, you've been doing the work, you did the work.
Yeah.
and you earned it, and so, yeah, sure. There is like this confidence of like, yeah, like this, I have a place in this
Yeah.
because it's so massive, but you can kind of feel like that sort of imposter syndrome. Like, how did I end up here? I don't feel like, how did I end up here? I feel like I did the work and then God one day was like,
Here's a
here you
door.
go.
Yeah.
This is a match for you. And I could have never planned it. And so my gratitude is massive.
That's a great answer. It really is, because that's really the only answer you can give, really. Like, you can't plan for it. You can't know what's right around the corner. And kind of connecting, you mentioned this a little bit in the game about just accepting things, and kind of not being able to plan for kind of what's around the corner in the game as well. And I just think that's a very relatable characteristic or feeling for me, and I think a lot of other people in this time of life where we're all kind of recovering from the COVID era, where we all cooped inside. But it doesn't matter if you're sitting in your room 24 hours a day. Anything can happen in an instant, at any moment.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I just think that games like these, that aren't just some, not to be reductive towards other developers, but like a Call of Duty is like kind of a not as serious story. It's like John Wick. It's just like dramatic violence for fun, and I appreciate that. I need to turn my brain off too. But games like these they change your life.
They
They
do.
change your life.
They impact your life. And that's why I think they're calling it a game of a generation. And it is interactive. I mean, you're not just, this is the beauty of a video game, right? You're actually living out and manipulating the actions of the hero or
Mhm.
anti-hero of the story. So when they're learning their lessons, it's a lot more personal than just being in the darkness of a theater, watching it on screen, which of course, if the actor's doing their job and it's well written, you're going to have emotions. That's why we love storytelling, because we relate on a human level. But now you're actually becoming the character. So the fact that people are attached to this and naming their children Atreus and their dogs
Yeah.
Kratos, their daughters Freya, and all these, I mean, that's when it's like it's in the zeitgeist, but it's like it's beyond pop culture. It's like emburrowed itself in the hearts and minds and souls, so that it's going to be a legacy and it's going to be a classic for I think forever as well.
Yeah, that's great. So when were you done working on the game? Like, when were you guys done shooting, done voice acting? And then I have like two more questions after this, and then you're free to go, I promise. But I just am curious, when were you guys done, and when did you guys start to see the final product, or did you have to wait until launch?
Okay, so we started, let's see, 2018, 2019. We were back on the stages, I want to say, the very tail end of 2019. And then for sure, the beginning of 2020, because we were all in the volume together on March 14th. Was it the 14th or there was a 15th? It was like the Ides of March. It was it felt like it was written in some, Greek tragedy, like when the government was like, we're shutting down.
Yeah.
It's the end of the world. And we were like, oh shit, we're going to have to quarantine together inside the volume. We were all like, well, if we couldn't imagine any people that we love more
That's
than
the best way to do it.
You guys were like, who's ordering the pizza? Let's get some wine going. Was not to make light of that moment, but at that moment, we actually didn't even know what the moment was. We were kind of like, oh, Tom Hanks got it, so it must be real. Like everybody was kind of a little, and not to be reductive about people's experiences with COVID, but nobody knew what we were in store for. And then, of course, we understood the severity. It escalated to like a major code red, and it was like, oh shit. So then we didn't even know when we'd see each other again. It got put on ice, And then eventually they had their protocols, and we had to spit in little vials every day, but to make sure that we were safe and we'd all come together. We had our masks and we had the
Oh
face
no.
shield.
That's a
Through
lot.
20 It was a lot through 2020 and through 2021. And then toward the tail end, I'm trying to remember if ever we had the masks off. It might have been when we were just finally wrapping things up.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I don't want Sony to be upset because their protocol was very rigorous.
I bet it was.
And it was important because it kept us all healthy. We had very little issues and bumps in the road, but people got COVID and we lived through it, God willing, and God bless all of us, because not everybody did. And when we say the last 2 years have been a complete trauma and travesty in so many lives, and all of us, we went through that together. So maybe even more so, this game feels like old friends coming back together, old family members that you've missed. Now we're all back together. Yeah. But yeah, so the very final piece, the final day on the stage is always my saddest day. Oh, I keep bumping into this big lantern. My set dressing. Stop it. The last day on stages was earlier this year.
Oh, wow.
And they had a fun little wrap party that night. And then we did, wait a minute, or was it last year at the end of the year? It's all kind of blends together. It was either earlier this year or the very end of last year. And then we did a ton of VO.
Yeah, you do that at the end. Okay.
The VO was all at the end. And that was when I started to freak out. I was like, no, we need to go back in the stages. There's too much important information. And they're like, don't worry, Danielle. It's not going to go over their heads. It's going to land. And you have to trust it. I was like, I was not happy at first. I was nervous. I wasn't angry. I was just like, are you sure? They're like, you have to trust it. I was like, okay, guys. And of course they're always right. And we wrapped that up about beginning of summer. Was it May?
Wow, that is crazy. They got all that done from summer to like last week.
I mean, and throughout the process, they're putting things together, and
that's just wild, though.
I believe it was April or May when I laid down I took a little picture of my last Freya VO. Hopefully not forever. We'll see what's in store.
Oh, that was my next question.
Let's hear it. I want to hear your question. I
just want to know, because the story of Ragnarök is not just some fiction in Corey's head and the writing team's head. It's a real story in mythology that goes back a long, long time. So this story was going to end at some point, but that doesn't, and I haven't finished the game. So I could be wrong, and we'll bleep out whatever Sony doesn't want to say here, but I don't think it's the end of our characters. At least I hope not. And so I was just curious, is there any hints, maybe a sentence with a word that I can overanalyze, or anything that you can say that is going to let us know if there's a God of War 3 or if Freya is going to come back in any way, shape, or form down the line?
From your lips to the God of War's ears is what I say.
Oh, man.
I would be thrilled to explore more of Freya, the Valkyrie, when all of the Valkyrie were, like, when Freya was basically banished, and then Odin had his grip on the entire legion of Valkyrie for his own bidding. Just like the megalomaniac narcissist that guy is. I mean, he's incredible and beautifully played by Richard Schiff.
Yeah, he did such a great job.
And totally unexpected from what I was sort of hearing or imagining. But I kind of like how, he's like your friend, he's kind of tricky and it's like a slippery fish.
I was just about to say slippery. Yep.
He's super oily. Like, oh man. And he got me too. Right. Had so much fun playing off of him. Adore him. So yeah, I mean, I hope so. I don't know anything. I mean, even if I did, I probably wouldn't be able to say anything. I will tell you that I can't imagine, like, if I'm inside the mind of Sony and I'm sitting on this the biggest IP, like one of the biggest IPs in the entire pantheon of video games. I can't imagine that they're like, well, we're going to go out with a bang and we're not going to explore anything else. I think they'll probably be exploring things, but the specifics on that, I don't know yet. So I hope I get to keep embodying Freya and keep her journey alive.
I do too. It's a great game. I'm really having a great time. And your acting, your portrayal, your body language, everything in the game was captured amazingly. Your skills are just top tier. And I just remember when your cousin who introduced us told me about you, my jaw dropped. I just had no idea what I was getting in for. And it's just been really great getting to know you, and I appreciate you sharing all this with me and feeling and being kind enough to come on my show.
Yeah, we've been in communication for over a year now.
It's been a long time, yeah.
Yeah, we were just trying to find the right time, and I knew that we would have so many limitations prior to the game dropping. So I was glad, because so much of the richness of this experience is to be able to share.
Yeah.
Freya's journey, and how many times we were talking about how there's that magic piece. And I'm going to tell you this right now, for almost every role I've played, not all of them, I did play the Mother of Death in Insidious Chapter 2.
I looked up your IMDb and I saw that and I was like, no way, because I love those movies. They're so good. And I had no idea.
I mean, look, I always bring a piece of myself to every character. And that's what I think that's what I do as an actor. I don't know if everybody does that, but there's always a touchstone, right? There's always a point of relatability. And that's, I think, how you access the truthfulness, right? In these imaginary circumstances, that's the truth. What's the truth? How do I resonate with it, with this character's journey? But, I cannot believe the symmetry between me and Freya in many facets of my life, from 2014, when I started, to now.
Wow, it's been almost 10 years.
Yeah, it's been this incredible mirror. And there's lots of story points for Freya that I have not experienced yet in my life, but her going from, I think, from this sort of, I've experienced in my life this metamorphosis, I will tell you, this transformation. And the only way that I was able to do it was when I started to take real personal responsibility for outcomes. And I could no longer be victimized, or I could no longer, being sad or being hurt, that's all human, right? So we're not taking that away from the experience, but it's like, okay, so how was I involved in co-creating that? What choices did I make? Can I really take an honest look at that? And there's a lot of acceptance and a lot of forgiveness. And then you kind of come out the other side and you liberate yourself. So there's a real sovereignty that happens, right? And I think what people are appreciating about Freya and about the writing and what they gave me to play was the full spectrum. So I think that's why she's such a satisfying character.
Yeah.
She's got this full spectrum. And at the end of it, when she has that moment where she realizes that vengeance, I don't need it to be whole. I don't need what I thought I did, because I have it now and it resides in me and no one can take it away. It's really beautiful, the sovereignty of that. Right.
Yeah. And what a perfect metaphor of those roots, right? Being Freya's emotional entanglement, I guess would be the correct word. And just watching you rip it apart and the tears pouring out of your face. There's just so much beauty in this game. There's so many great scenes. And it's just great.
That was a very powerful day on set. I got to, and again, that's right. I got to just think about all those places in my life that I was ready to rip out, let go of. No longer can you have authority and power in my life. So yeah, thank God they gave me such great writing. It's just a blessing.
No, you guys are a great team. If there would be one other character that you could maybe not necessarily play, but who's your favorite character? Who do you
easy. Ratatoskr. I'm obsessed. With the squirrel.
I forgot about the squirrel. The squirrel is hilarious. I can't wait to do some of those side quests.
I'm obsessed with Song Wancho. and I did not know his legacy of voice acting, but then of course, after I met him and I heard him, and I was literally like, I was fangirling. Like I felt like I was at some rock concert, and I just hearing his very gentlemanly voice, he's very he's sort of a rapscallion, but he's so smart, and he's like one step ahead, and he's this squirrel, and he's the cutest.
Yeah, they made him cute.
Oh my God, they made him so cute, but he's sort of, he's like, oh, he's a little, he's got a little twinkle in his eye, he's very much a gentleman, but he's also, I don't think he's not, he's so self-possessed, like he doesn't put on airs for anybody. He just is who he is. And I just fell madly in love with him. So, I mean, look, I love everybody. I love Kratos. I love all these like dramatic characters. I mean, Robert Craighead as Brock, I mean, he just cracks me up. His delivery is hysterical. And Sindri and Adam Harrington as Sindri. And, they're such the odd couple, right? They created the odd couple. It always works. And they did it inside our game. But I am obsessed with the squirrel. And
I was not expecting that.
Nope. I can't get enough of them.
That's great. That's great. I think I'm gonna have to say Odin. He's growing on me right now. I like him. I like Odin, and I didn't at first. So I was like, this is a weird portrayal of a god. He doesn't fit the mold of the dynamic of the other characters, and I really didn't like him. But after seeing him interact with Atreus a little bit more, he's starting to grow on me. Yeah, starting to grow on me. I'm interested to see where he ends up. So
yeah, he sort of subverts your expectations on exactly like maybe how you thought he might be thunderous and the All-Father.
Yes, exactly.
But, you have such a booming presence with Thor, with Ryan Hurst and with obviously with Christopher Judge, and and so it was kind of interesting to play him just sort of like I don't know, like some sort of like CEO or something, like kind of like just come have a drink with me, we'll talk. And it's a kind of a salesman, like it's just really interesting. And I could just see he's like a chess player. He's like a master manipulator, and he's always 10 steps ahead. And Freya, who one of her beautiful qualities is her honesty with her emotions and leading with her heart, being the goddess of love and all these things, is also one of her weaknesses. And he knew how to prey on that. He knew that I would give it all, and he took it.
Yeah.
I made a choice to be there. And that is when she realizes how to emancipate herself.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, it's just such an interesting dynamic of characters. Thor, I mean, I was thinking Thor was going to be more in the game. I was kind of sad when his presence wasn't as I don't know, present, I guess. But I just love the dynamic everybody has brought to the table. Angra Boda, I don't know if I'm saying Angra Boda.
Yeah, Layla, lovely actress.
She
so lovely.
Was so delightful, that whole subsequence. There's so much good in this game, and I just hope everybody has a chance to play it. And I just really appreciate you taking time to talk with me about it. And I think I asked all my questions, my silly questions, and yeah. There's another thing. Sorry, one more thing. I just thought you should hear this. This is another compliment I found on Reddit.
Oh wow, Reddit! That's awesome. Thanks.
This has almost 1,000 upvotes. You're at 714, and it says Freya's voice acting is top fucking tier. All the cast does an extremely well job, but I don't feel like people talk about her. The range of emotion that Danielle brings is absolutely insane. And so I think that's a great way to end our segment here. And I just really appreciate you taking the time. You do such good work. It's really an honor to talk with somebody who works in the AAA, like high production space, because I've never met anybody in this field before, and to just be able to say thank you for all your hard work and for everything that you've done and all of your training over the years that has led up to me being able to be entertained in my little room and in my sweatpants. I just I don't take that for granted, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, wow. That is so kind. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It is a journey it's a journey of all those years and all the no's that led to the yeses and sticking with it. And yeah, just to get to a place where you can really infuse every aspect of yourself in something so meaningful. And thank you for sharing that. I would love to get a copy of that little Reddit clip.
Yeah,
That
I'll send
is
it to
so
you.
kind. I'm so confused by Reddit. I've tried to do a room and I'm so not technical. I was like, hello, is anyone hear me? But maybe I'll get on there one time and interface with people and just say hello and thank them for that kind words.
All right, Danielle. Well, I will hopefully talk to you soon. And thank you. And I'll see you around.
All right, see you around. Thank you for your love of the game.
Thank you. Bye now.